Good day, strategy gamers, and welcome to episode 1 of our new Let's Play series on the channel, Star Wars Rebellion. This is an old classic, and it's going to be part of a collection of kind of vintage throwback Let's Plays that we'll do in the channel. So I think every couple of months I'll probably just introduce a game in one of our rotations of Let's Plays that's a bit of a classic, right? May even call them an antique at this point. So this is Star Wars Rebellion. It released in 1998. If you were in the UK or parts of Europe, you would have known it as Star Wars Supremacy. And this game is a personal favorite of mine. Easily has to be one of my favorite Star Wars games. Now you might be saying, this seems like a bit of a shift from the Gary Grigsby focus the channel has had thus far, and that is true. One of the reasons for the name First Contact Gamer for the channel is that to me it has kind of threefold meaning. I'll explain two of them to you now. The first is kind of the old strategy adage that no plan survives first contact. The second being first contact of, science fiction and all the various scenarios of first contact that is written in sci-fi, and one of those would be a Star Wars interest, right? So the channel is going to have a healthy mix of historical strategy games and science fiction strategy games. I think Gary Grigsby-like games will always be a good chunk of the content that I produce, though. Can't say enough about the games or how much I enjoy doing videos on them. But we will occasionally have some science fiction based games, such as this Star Wars one. And this game is available on Steam, it's on GOG, and I believe it's also available through EA's Origin platform, and perhaps there are others that I'm missing as well. So it is pretty accessible, really cheap to pick up. If you ever find like the Steam Summer Sale, or if there's ever a Star Wars content sale on any of those platforms, you'll usually find this for just a couple of dollars. But I would argue that there are aspects of this game that are truly best in class that I have not seen repeated in any strategy game. And one of the things that I think this game does better than any other is represents a strategic perspective of how to do kind of counterinsurgency or deal with rebellions in a very challenging way. Rebellions and partisans, if you're going back to our War in the East examples, they're in a lot of strategy games, but I don't think any game does those concepts better than Star Wars Rebellion, which is befitting of the title of the game. It just so happens that it also is in the Star Wars universe, which I'm a particular fan of, and so many others are, that it kind of gained some cult popularity. The challenge, though, was upon this game's release, it was not well received. And one of the big reasons for that was its presentation, its graphics, etc. Were seen as a little bit behind the times, and it also felt a little clunky to a lot of players. Nowadays, I look at its user interface and say it was probably ahead of its time with some of the concepts that it introduced. So, for example, you can save frequented windows or locations in a kind of hotkey bar where you can just quickly access them. So I think in a lot of ways it was ahead of its time, and it just wasn't recognized. It's not to say the game's perfect. There's a suite out there called RebEd that allows you to do modding and editing of the game, and the game has had a fantastic community that is 23 years later. It's still a little light in numbers, but there's a lot of passionate players out there for this game. Anyways, we're going to do a Let's Play series on it. I would suggest that if you have any interest in science fiction or Star Wars, to pick it up if you have an opportunity to do so. I have found that it runs pretty smoothly on modern operating systems. I have one bug that I haven't yet fixed in the game that is more of a graphical issue, but it's for me it's very minor, and I'll point it out when we come across it. It's not a big thing that breaks anything. So we're going to first go up here and we're going to play a game with the hardest difficulty settings. I've done one playthrough before doing this recording just to kind of refresh myself on concepts and stuff, and I think we'll be able to handle this difficulty level. And we're going to do the large galaxy map. You choose that here. And we're also going to play as the Imperial player. So this is going to boot the game up. And we got this cinematic that we're going to skip past.
Military Protocol droid,
and then there's this tutorial that's kind of this intro, and I'm going to let this play for you guys to hear.
A briefing for you on the current state of the galaxy. The Galactic information display shows the
this is our map.
In a state of disorder. While many systems remain loyal to the Empire,
green systems are Imperial systems.
The Death Star has convinced many
red systems are Rebel Alliance.
To favor the rebels. Imperial troops have maintained order on several of the core systems who may have otherwise.
In some of these we have military presences on.
Many systems along the rim
and
of
in
the
blue here, this is kind of
considered
the outer rim if you're familiar with the expanded universe or additional novels that were written. So these are all unexplored for the most part off the start.
The location of the Imperial Palace and the heart of the Empire. We know that rebel fanatics will attempt to seize Coruscant.
So for the rebels to win, they need to take Coruscant and capture the Emperor and Darth Vader. So as long as they don't do that, they won't win. Over here is Yavin.
We have confirmed that there is presently a rebel base located there. If you wish, the Imperial fleet,
and that is where the headquarters starts for the rebels. But then they will, well, and I should say this, they will have a headquarters somewhere in the galaxy, and that headquarters they can move.
If the rebel headquarters could be destroyed, the rebellion would be dealt a severe blow. Imperial forces should probe the far reaches of the galaxy.
So pretty much our objective is to find their headquarters and destroy it.
Oh yes. Intelligence also indicates that the rebel headquarters can be relocated from one system to another at the whim of the rebel leaders. The Imperial fleet is currently deployed to maintain order throughout the galactic core.
And these blue systems are all neutral.
Scattered after the Battle of Yavin. There are also additional Imperial troops, fighters, and system defenses deployed in each of these systems. The Emperor is located on Coruscant. Lord Vader has recently arrived in this system.
Okay, so Vader is close to Coruscant. The beginning here, all these settings, they're all random every game you do, right? So the Rebel headquarters will be in random locations. Characters will start in random locations. Ships will start in random locations. So no game is the same, which really adds to the replayability of the game.
She is cowering in some rebel stronghold. She must be captured.
And that's the secondary objective we have, is to capture Mon Mothma and Luke Skywalker.
Must be captured and brought before them. Together, they will turn the rebel to the dark side of the Force. That ends this briefing. The forces of the Empire are at your command.
Okay, so we let him go through and explain a lot of that because you actually can't you can't disable that. It happens at the beginning of every turn, and he is going to be our assistant throughout this game. And it's not that he's some type of tutorial wizard, which is very common in modern games. It's more so he acts as kind of a verbal notification system for you. So we're going to be getting notifications on the right of the screen here, and these are all broken into different categories we'll explain. And the droid will actually give you verbal cues that something has happened or there's something you should look for. The droid will also make fun of you. So if you misclick or if you try to do something that you can't do within the game's mechanics, they will make fun of you, which is a little... The humor is really novel and nice at first, but after hours and hours of playing the game, you start to hate the guy. You start to feel like he gets on your nerves a little. Now you'll see that I paused the game, and that's because this is a real-time strategy game, but it's not like an RTS like StarCraft or anything like that. It's just another parallel would be Paradox titles like EU4, Crusader Kings, etc., where you can either pause the game or you can have it click through by day, and each, I'll use air quotes here, turn in this game is 1 day, and it's just, I think on very slow, one turn or 1 day takes 1 full minute, if I remember correctly. It's something like that. And at the fastest setting, you'll go through a day every like 3 seconds, right? So it goes pretty fast. What I actually find is by the time you really get into the game, um, you're finding yourself every single day kind of stopping the clock to very slow to handle all the new notifications that you got in. And this is one of the challenges of the game. Not that it's bad game design, just that it adds to the difficulty, but I think in a very good way. When the game's paused, you can't do anything. Like we're paused right now, and we can't go look at things. We can't give new orders. The game is just truly a pause mode, which, if you think back to games from the 90s, was a very common thing in the 80s. If you hit pause, the game was paused. You didn't get to go and do things once you hit pause. And that's what this game's doing right here. So we're going to keep it on very slow and then intermix it to medium or fast when we want to skip a day or two ahead. Now, at the top here we have resources. So these are minerals, refined, and then our maintenance pool. The first couple episodes we're really not even going to need to look or talk about these at all, because our first couple episodes are going to be very much so just trying to get a handle on the situation. We're not necessarily going to be into expansion, growth, and building mode regarding these materials at the start. So for now, we can kind of ignore them, but we will talk about them later on. Like I mentioned on the right-hand side here, we have different notifications. So it kind of, in my mind, goes in order of importance with one exception. The first is just notifications about allegiances or support. So if a system turns to start supporting us, the Empire, or if a system escapes our grasp and flips over to the Rebel Alliance, we'll get that notification here. Then we have ship notifications. So this could be that we've transferred units from one system to another and they finally arrived. It gives us a notification. Then we have these mission notifications. So the game, I would describe it as multi-dimensions. It has different ways that you interact with the map to achieve your objectives. One is you have the traditional, conventional military forces. You have spaceships, which are like Star Destroyers and X-Wings, right? Then you have ground forces, stormtroopers, rebel fighters, and then you also have characters or heroes, you can think of them as. And each side has, I want to say it's about 20 to 30 heroes. And you start out with a random assortment of them. Some of them you always start with, right? So the rebels always start with Luke, the Empire always starts with the Emperor and Vader, etc. But as the game goes along, right, this is simulating pretty much everything right after the movie A New Hope. So what this is kind of simulating is, well, after the New Hope, the Empire lost a lot of admirals, generals, leaders in the Death Star in that battle, and they had to start finding new talent, right? So we're going to be doing some missions to try to recruit new talent to join us, and we're going to unlock new heroes. And it is very RNG, and I really kind of like some of the random aspects of this game. It doesn't feel like a dice roll, so I don't perceive it in a bad way. But what it means is, I have played this game so much since 1998. I really don't feel like any game progresses detail-wise the same as any other game I've ever played, right? There's always surprises, there's always different hooks, etc. Which, considering this is a Star Wars IP game, that is rare nowadays, right? Normally when you get a game, especially that's strategy in nature for Star Wars or Star Trek or any other popular media franchise, they'll come up with some basic strategy concepts, and then if you replay it, it's going to play out pretty much the same way every time. It doesn't feel like that with Star Wars Rebellion. And I think a big part of that is the randomness of unlocking the heroes. And there are lots of quirks to the heroes that we'll go into in more detail later. Then we have notifications about resources, which I mentioned up here. We don't need to think about them too much. We have construction notifications. So if we finish building a construction yard, or if we have a shipyard that's not doing anything, it'll let us know. Then we have notifications about, well, this actually I think is units that are interacting for bombardments and stuff. We don't get too many of these. This is the exception I said in terms of priority of order. We have here battles, and then the last two we really don't touch on. So that's some high-level overview there. On the bottom, these are kind of like your reference materials. So there's actually an in-game encyclopedia where you can look up, hey, I want to run this type of mission with a hero. What does it do? And it will tell you what that mission will do and what type of skills help with that mission. It doesn't spell it out in one format, right? It's kind of narrative driven in how it phrases everything. And then you also have like these reference databases where you can look and you can find different heroes or ships, etc. Planet ships, armies, etc. In the far bottom right, we're going to use this quite a bit. It actually allows us to filter the map to areas where, so we might filter the map to say, show me everywhere that I have a shipyard that's not doing anything. And then that will be highlighted on the map for us. So I'm going to hit resume gameplay, and it's going to start playing. And we're just going to know that for the first day or two, we're not going to be doing too much because I want to explain the game to you. And really, after a couple of days, we'll probably be done in the game time. And we'll really start to get into doing some actions. So I'm going to hit resume so we can start interacting with the map. These sectors, right? These are all kind of the core worlds, and they're all scouted. They're all known right now. Red indicates a system is aligned to the rebels, green to the Empire, and blue is neutral. So you can jump into any of these sectors just by clicking on them. So we're going to jump into the Sesswana sector. And here, this is really, holy crap, this is a really bad start for us. Wow. So this is kind of our capital, our most important system, and in the entire sector, we don't have a single other planet that is aligned to us. That is, I would say that is not common, and that is going to make this really, really difficult. But it should be a fun challenge. But this is kind of the sector map and what it looks like. So you see each planet highlighted here. There are icons around the planet. Right here we double click into this, it opens up the different facilities, kind of civilian facilities that can be used to construct things on these planets. So you see here in Coruscant, we could have shipyards, troop training facilities, or construction yards. Construction yards build buildings, troop training builds troops and army regiments, that's clear enough, right? And then shipyards produce ships. Simple. Over here you can see further details. We also have these 4 refineries and this mine, right? So that's kind of the facility overview of Coruscant. Then we have this little turret icon in the bottom left, and this indicates that there is either personnel there, starfighters, or shields or planetary defenses. So the first tab shows us our heroes. We have the Emperor sitting on Coruscant. We also have 6 stormtrooper regiments. We also have a whole bunch of TIE fighter squadrons. We have 3 shields and 1 kind of planetary defense turret system. So that's what's on Coruscant. Now, if we were to look at a rebel system, there's fog of war here. So what we know about the planet is that there is this construction yard, but 100 days from now, they might build additional things here, and if we don't do recon or espionage or visit the planet, we might not know what they have there. So at the beginning, you can get a good sense of things, but after a while, they're going to be building, they're going to be moving people, etc. Same thing here is if we look at their turret icon, we can see that there are shields, but we don't know if they have troops. We don't know if there are heroes there, etc. So you have only a certain amount of intelligence for each planet. Around Coruscant, there's this other icon, which looks like a Star Destroyer. For the Rebel fleets, they have an icon that is a Nebulon B frigate. So we'll double-click this, and this brings up our fleet menu. And here we see that we have one fleet. If we had multiple fleets, they'd all be listed here. And Fleet 1 is composed of these capital ships. So an Imperial Star Destroyer and a Galleon. And a Galleon is a troop transport. We have 6 TIE Fighter squadrons. And we have 3 Stormtrooper regiments and 2 Imperial Fleet regiments in terms of troop capacity that are currently aboard these ships. So this is kind of our starting fleet at our capital, right? And if we click around here, like let's say we also wanted to look at the Dalamar sector. If we click that, it opens it up here in this other pane. And then we can, this is also Windows based, and I actually think they did a really good job with this. We can then say close Sesswana, and maybe we want this over here. We can then rotate it over. And you saw me demonstrate, right, that these windows, you can move them just like you could in your operating system. So in that sense, I think it was pretty modern. And then we could also say, I've forgotten how to do it now. Oh, minimize, that's it. It goes to this tray here. So then we can always pop up Pantalum and what exists there. So here's the map. Generally, my strategy is to kind of take the Sesswana sector as the Imperials and make it all Imperial, build it out as our stronghold, and just have that be the priority. And in all of the other sectors, do everything we can to try to prevent the rebels from just taking them over quickly, right? Because the more systems you have, the more resources you get, the more things you can build. And this very much is, in that sense, there are aspects of it that are like a 4X, right? Where you have to paint the map as quickly as you can in a lot of different ways. In these Outer Rim sectors, you see we have all these planets listed here, but we don't know anything about them. And the Rebellion's headquarters right now exists somewhere in the Outer Rim. We have no idea where. So what we will do is we will build ships or probe droids to go and scout these sectors. Now, if we wanted to take our fleet here at Coruscant, and we wanted to send it to Yaga Minor to invade Yaga Minor, we can just right-click, move, click Yaga Minor, and they will travel there. A great mechanic of this game is that when these ships start moving towards Yaga Minor, they enter hyperspace, and they're stuck there until they arrive. Right, so it'll probably take 5 days or something like that to get to Yaga Minor. And in that time, we can't tell them to stop. We can't have them come back. We have to wait for them to arrive at Yaga Minor. So we might send this fleet here, but then get intelligence that there's actually a huge rebel trap waiting for us at Yaga Minor, and their entire fleet's there just waiting for us to come. And there'd be nothing we could do about it. Or maybe they would invade Coruscant right after we send them to Yaga Minor. And then we find ourselves defenseless, and they're in hyperspace, so there's nothing we can do about it until they arrive. So travel is such an important aspect of this game. It's very, very well done. We could also say, hey, Emperor Palpatine, I want you to go on a mission to Yaga Minor. It's the exact same concept as he has to travel there, so the game assumes he's taking some type of Lamba shuttle or other transport to get there by himself, right? He doesn't need a capital fleet to get there. But he might have 10 days of travel time to get to Yaga Minor. You can also send troops and fighter squadrons and such through that same transport mechanism, and it takes a while. Now, travel within the sector usually is pretty quick. I think from any sector from top to bottom probably takes about 15 days max, right? And they are kind of proportional, that Coruscant to Avram takes less time than Coruscant to Yaga Minor. So it is kind of scaled in that sense. But if we wanted to go from Sesswana to Yavin 4, or Yavin, I should be correct there. If we wanted to send the fleet to Yavin, that might take, well, we can actually test this. Confirm move. It will take 71 days to do that. And we're going to say no, because we don't want our fleet to be stuck in hyperspace for 71 days this early on, right? So travel time is a very important factor in this game to consider. And with this, I think we're going to start getting into it a little bit. We're going to start playing now. We're on day 5. There hasn't been any way to stop that, unfortunately. So let's think about our core objective, right? One of the first things we have to do is say, how do we make Sesswana sector kind of our home? And one of the ways we're going to do that is, you know, actually, yeah, we're going to, normally I would have, thinking here. Yeah, I'm going to have the Emperor do a mission to Coruscant to recruit new heroes. So here we can choose what mission we want the Emperor to do. And we're going to say we want you to recruit new heroes. Now we have this new icon here, which identifies that we have a mission happening. And you can see who's involved and what they're doing. But to continue our objective of taking over Sesswana, I want to try to convert Fortras, Avram, and Chandrila to the Imperial side, but I need diplomacy to do that, and I need heroes to send on diplomatic missions to these systems. So I'm going to take Lord Vader, and I'm going to send him to Coruscant. And then we have this other hero here, Zuggs. And because I don't have an eidetic memory, we're going to look to see what Zuggs is good at. So we're going to click Status. And here this kind of brings up their character card. It says where they are, what they're doing. We see that we do not believe Zuggs has any force ranking, and this is an interesting twist in this game. Some of your heroes might actually be force attuned and can be trained in the force, right? And it is completely random, right? So you might find that, I don't actually know if Chewbacca can, but you might find that Chewbacca is force sensitive, and you might have Luke Skywalker train him in the force, and then you have Jedi Chewbacca. I think Chewbacca might be locked where he can't be. Normally it's kind of tertiary characters that are actually force sensitive. So you might have, here's a good example, you might have Admiral Thrawn, right? Because Thrawn is a hero for the Empire. Maybe he's force sensitive. But then we have these different ratings. So diplomacy, espionage, combat, and leadership. Combat and leadership are very, very useful. For example, if we wanted to make Zuggs an admiral of our fleet, right? Espionage is great if we wanted him to sneak in and do reconnaissance on an enemy planet. And diplomacy is very good for diplomatic missions to try to convince neutral worlds, or even our own worlds, to find the Empire more favorable. Then you have these R&D capabilities. So some heroes you can actually assign to research new ships, troops, or facilities. It's like Admiral Thrawn can be used to help research new ship designs, for example. And then you also show what different ranks Zuggs is capable of managing. So could he be a general? Could he be an admiral? Right? And we're also going to send Zuggs to Coruscant because he's actually a pretty skillful character, and I want him to help with flipping over Sesswana to our influence. Let's look now in Dalamar what we have. So we have 2 systems that are aligned to us, and then a bunch of neutral planets and 2 rebellion planets. We have Noghri Death Commandos and an Imperial Espionage Droid. So I think what I'm going to do is send the Imperial Espionage Droid to... No, actually, I'm going to cancel this. I'm going to send both of these to Coruscant. You can hold control and select multiple things, by the way. But really, Sesswana is going to be our focus. So normally, if this was looking better, right, like if we had more control here, I might have sent them to do missions on these 2 planets to expand our influence here. But right now, it's just not a possibility for us. Okay, now here on Camperis, we have a troop training facility that is present, and we're going to start building something. And we're going to build a whole bunch of Imperial Army regiments. These are just kind of one of the cheaper options that you have in terms of ground units, but we're going to start building a bunch of them. And then we have this construction facility, and we're going to use it to build more troop training facilities. And what I like to do is I like to have in each sector, right, this planet is doing our troop training, this planet is our shipyard, this planet is our construction yard where we have all of our construction yards, right? I'm going to try to turn Camperis into a troop training hub. So we're going to build 4 training facilities. It says costs here and time to complete, and we're going to deploy them there. Now, there's a reason we could only build 4. I missed this when I was going over our overview of these icons on the planets. There are these 3 rows below the planet, right? The first one has some white cubes and blue cubes. That is kind of the planet's size and capacity and population is what it's representing. So some planets can have more factories, more shipyards, more mines, etc. than others, just because of their size and population. And there's a limit to each planet on how much you can have. Because we've built now 4 training facilities here, all of these bars are white because we've used up all of our capacity. Tan Green has 3 blue cubes, so that means we could build 3 additional facilities of any kind on Tan Green. Below the white and blue bars are these yellow and orange ones, and these represent minerals on the planet. And then below that is a green and red bar, and this represents the support and opinion of the planet for one cause over another. So you see here in Coruscant, it's all green because it is completely loyal to us. Avram is kind of split 50-50, so that's why they're neutral, is they don't really support one side over the other. So we want to, as quickly as we can, try to gain the support of these 3 planets because they're just sitting there neutral. This one, like Bortras, they look like maybe they're a little closer to 40-60, but it's not enough for them to declare for the rebellion yet. So we'll probably start at Bortras, then go to these 2. We also see that we have, well, actually I want to check defenses at Camperis. So here's one thing that worries me a little bit, is this is going to be our training hub, but there's no shields. There's no shields. Shields are important because they prevent an enemy fleet from being able to just bombard all of your troops from space, and there's not really anything you can do about it. So I'm going to stop building those facilities. Yep, so yes, we want to stop. And instead, I'm going to build, and there's our lovely friend, right? You can hear him. Instead, we're going to build a shield installation on the planet. Then after that, we'll go back to building troop training facilities. Clicked over here on our notification because here it says we have an idle yard on Camperis, but we fixed that now, right? Let's look at our fleet here. We have an Imperial Dreadnought with a TIE Fighter Squadron and an Imperial Fleet Regiment. Okay, so we're going to leave them there for now. Let's look now in the Farfin sector, and we only have 1 planet here. Let's see what the fleet is that we have. A Carrack light cruiser. Okay. So I think what I want to do is I want to send that Carrack light cruiser to Camperis. So we're going to move them there. Let's see now what we have at Pharaoh. And we have a bunch of troops and some TIE fighter squadrons. And we have no facilities to build anything with. So we're just going to move along the Sluis sector, and we have Sluis Van. And here we have Gergerod. Okay, so let's see what his stats are. And here we have very high leadership rating and a pretty high diplomacy rating. So we're going to want him doing diplomacy missions for us. And I think we're going to... I'm tempted to have him go through and try to convert this entire system. See if there's any really good planets that already have shipyards and stuff. It doesn't look like it. Yeah, so because there's not really anything of value immediately on any of those, I think I'm also going to move Jer Gerard to Coruscant because he's pretty valuable. Let's go back and see. We have a construction facility on Sluisvan, and we have some troops. So again, we're going to build a shield here to try to help protect that planet. I'm sorry if it feels like I'm moving around quite a bit with some of the interface stuff, but really this is going to be a fast-paced game in that sense, very unlike War in the East, for example, because this time is constantly clicking down on us. Or moving up, I guess would be the better metaphor. So, Ando, let's see what's there. Oh, jackpot. Okay. We have Ozzel, Veers, and Dala. So Ozzel is a really good leader, and he can do some things like subduing because of his leadership ranking. So let's have you stay there for now. Veers, you can do troop research. So Veers, what I want to do is I want to send him to Coruscant because eventually we're going to have a troop training facility somewhere in Sesswana, and this again is going to be kind of our fortified sector is going to be our strategy. I'll want him in one of those fortified systems researching new troops. And then Dala is going to be a really good partner for Ozzel, right? They both have very similar rankings. Let's see what's on Halloween. And here we have Shinra Rex. He doesn't have the greatest. It's good combat and espionage. So I think what we're going to do is move Shinra Rex to Ando. So you see now he's moving here. And then Piet, he has high diplomacy, so we're going to have him do diplomacy in this sector. So let's have, which system? Ooh, we're going to have him go to Palin High. And we want him to try to get Palin High to be to our cause, because you see here, they already have 2 shipyards there, which would be really valuable to us. Okay. And on Ando, we have troop training facility. So we're going to build more Imperial Army regiments. We're just going to do 10 here. What did we have in space? We have a Victory class Star Destroyer. Very nice. Yeah, so Fakir, we're going to say this is our second priority, maybe third priority, and I say that because the Dalamar system is also looking pretty strong for us right now. So Sesswana with Coruscant will be our priority, but we also want to have some other sectors that we look at trying to bolster. In Halloween, we have a construction yard and troops, but again, we don't have a shield, so I'm going to build a shield there. There's no heroes present, and we just have this troop transport, and Nita is on the transport. So I'm going to send Nita to Ando as well. And when they all get there, what we're going to do is we're going to send all 4 of these heroes on missions together, right? So you can group heroes together to do a mission to make that mission more, well, stronger, to make it more likely to succeed, right? So that's what we're going to do. And we're going to have them attempting to incite rebellion. The irony of that is a little crazy, but to incite uprisings on rebellion-held worlds. So we're probably going to send them here to Burchest because it doesn't look like there's any troops present based off our starting intel, which should make it a little easier for their mission to be successful. So because it's already a rebellion world, we can't use diplomacy because they're not neutral anymore. So we have to try to incite an uprising. So that's what we're going to do around Ando. And I think Ando will be a bit of a stronghold for us here in the south of the core. And then we have the Carillion sector, right? The home of homeworld of Han Solo. Oh, let's see.
There is a message from the Emperor.
You have not adequately
So the
supported
Emperor
me on this
failed his
and
mission,
it has failed.
and he did not recruit anyone. And that happens, so we're just going to have him try it again.
As you wish.
He gets all pissy and upset at us, but really everything's just fine. He's not going to say, you're fired or anything like that. In the Carillion sector, we have 2 systems. we have X-Queen. And in X-Queen we have... I'm sorry, I'm misclicking here. The resolution, sometimes you can kind of easily misclick because of how big everything is compared to your mouse. We don't have anything here, no troops, no nothing, so they're just there. And then we have Vagran. And in Vagran we have no structures, but we do have a shield, a fighter squadron, and a stormtrooper regiment. So the Carillion sector, we really don't have any assets to start with here. There's just not too much we can do right off the bat. So we've got our initial heroes moving. A lot of folks coming inbound here to Coruscant. Vader doesn't get there till turn 32, which is really unfortunate. Oh, Jar Jar doesn't until 77. So that is a long, long ways away. I might end up changing my mind here on the Emperor doing diplomacy, because we need to get these 3 worlds quickly, because I can promise you this, the Rebellion is going to be taking their heroes and sending them out saying, listen, those people who built the machine to try to blow up planets, they might be the bad guys. Maybe you want to join us, right? Which is obviously just insurgent propaganda. There's no truth to it at all. Empire did nothing wrong. But they're going to be doing their best to try to convert these worlds to their cause. And considering all of this, we don't have any intel on where their fleet is here either. So we're not going to send these guys around chasing for the enemy fleet. What we... actually, I don't know that we will. We're just going to hold everyone here for a little bit until we get Vader and them in tow. Looking here at Camp Harris, yeah, they're building everything. So let's take a look at some features, because I want to go over as many mechanics and features as I can in episode 1, so then all the following episodes are a little bit smoother in terms of just gameplay. I find this really helpful in the bottom right. This Galactic information display. We get this pop-up, and here we can say, okay, manufacturing. Show me idle construction yards. You see here that in Coruscant we forgot we have a construction yard that we didn't start building anything. And what we're actually going to do is we're going to build another construction yard. So that way when we need to build things, we build them faster. So this is taking 40 turns to build this one construction yard. If we had 2, it would take, just say 20. I think it's 20, but I'm not entirely confident on the math works like that. Let's go back here and say, okay, well now show me all my idle training facilities. Nothing popped up, so there are none. And then let's look for idle shipyards, which I'm a little disappointed. I don't know that we have any shipyards. Let's just see. We have no shipyards. I told you every game doesn't feel the same because all of the details, all the heroes, all the locations and their stats are all random. I don't know that I've ever had a game start as the Empire and have no shipyards. So we don't have a single location capable of building even a TIE fighter squadron. That is a problem. A big problem. Okay. So we're already on day 12 and we haven't even left the very slow mode. I think what I'm going to do is actually close out episode 1 here, and I think this is going to put us in a very good spot for the next episodes. I gotta say, I'm really looking forward to doing this game. It is a lot of fun. Again, very different than the Gary Grigsby genre of games, but it's very strategic, very compelling, and it's an interesting content being Star Wars and all too if you're into that science fiction. We're going to move over to that every 3 days episode from a new series schedule. So this is going to be posting on Sunday. That means then on Monday we're going to go back to War in the East. Tuesday will be War in the East, and then we go back to Star Wars Rebellion. So every 3rd day you'll have one of these videos if you'd like to follow along with us. Thanks so much for giving the video a watch. As it's the first of the series, I'd say if you're interested in following along with their content, please give the video and channel a like and a subscribe, and a way you can get the notifications and support the game and a lot of the great content developers that we have with the Matrix folks and the Gary Grigsby games too. So with that, strategy gamers, hoping you have yourselves an excellent day. Bye now.